Hi, my name is Geraldine Logan. I'm the director for the OLLI at ISU program, and we're very excited today to have 3 of our sponsors and several of our instructors to talk about their classes for this fall. First, I would like to introduce Steve from Clarity Asset Management. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Geraldine. Thank you. As Geraldine mentioned, I'm Steve Larson, one of the principals of Clarity Asset Management, and one of the values that we hold as a firm in helping people plan and invest for financial health. One of those values is lifelong learning and what we call life-wide learning. So the length of life and the breadth of life. And OLLI and its predecessor, College for Seniors, was a perfect fit for us being able to promote those values in the central Iowa area. So we're glad to sponsor that. As you know, we've provided mugs in the past for coffee and now notebooks that you can use at home. They're Zoom-friendly notebooks. You can take notes on that. We're going to give a prize for the first person that gets a coffee stain on their notebook, and then they can have that distinction. Seriously, we really like to promote OLLI not as a source of advertising, but as a source of promoting what I think is good and healthy for Ames and Central Iowa. Lifelong learning and life-wide learning is what it's all about, and it's an easy way to promote that among seniors in this area, and we're glad to be a part of it.
Thanks, Steve. So now let's have Linda from Green Hills.
Hi, good morning. My name is Linda Lauver. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director at Green Hills. We're just south of the beautiful Iowa State University campus. And we are a proud sponsor of the OLLI program. Thank you for being involved. Lifelong learning is a priority for successful aging. And at Green Hills, we think you have a very exciting curriculum. Happy that we have a lot of residents that are involved. In fact, as a housewarming gift, when people move to Green Hills, what we give them is a membership to OLLI. So we want to get people who live perhaps out of town or out of state, maybe never even heard of OLLI, who have become more and more involved in the university and in the OLLI program. So we do have some beautiful townhomes and apartments available, and we are having in-person visits and tours. If people are more comfortable with a virtual visit, we can also visit by Zoom or FaceTime. So we're back in action, and we would like to show you a quick little video. Bailey, take it away. Bailey? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda. My apologies to Bailey. I forgot to make her co-host. That put her a little behind the curve, but she's a champ and got it right up there. So my apologies to Bailey. So, all right. Very nice presentation. Okay, let's have Dawn from North Crest.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dawn Athoffer, and I am the CEO and administrator of North Crest. Many of you might have seen a different face here for 26 years, not through Zoom naturally, but Linda Doyle actually retired in June. So we have had a lot of changes at North Crest, one of which is our landscape, not only with the CEO personnel's change, but also with the landscape of our entire campus. So we opened up our new independent living apartments in April. We added 48 custom apartments to our lineup of townhomes and apartment buildings. Those were all full when we opened in April, and we can say there was a successful opening even amid COVID. So that was very, very good to have everyone move in, even though social distancing kind of has made things look a lot different. We are also adding 32 assisted living apartments, and that is going to open in October. That is something that the community has been asking for, asking North Crest, and so we have delivered, and those will be open to what we call to any guests outside of the North Crest community with no community fees or no entrance fees. So we're very excited to have those come online. And then if you've drove by recently, we also have our new health center, which is going to open up in October. So things are changing quickly. We're excited. I'm so excited to be the sponsor of OLLI. This is new for me. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone today. It's exciting. And thank you so much for allowing us to be one of your sponsors.
Thank you, Dawn. We appreciate all of our sponsors. We could not do our programming without all of you. It's super important that we have all of you. So thank you so much. And if you are super busy today, we understand if you have to leave us, but you are more than welcome to stay the rest of the time with us. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start with the instructors who could be here today. We have some who couldn't make it, and that's the way it goes. But we're going to start, and what they will do is they're going to tell you their name, the number of their class, and the title of their class. And then I've given them about 90 seconds to give you a quick overview of their class. So we're gonna start with Bibi Rahman.
Hello, good morning. This course I am proposing is going to be all about literary classics. We all know of Shakespeare and Milton as gracing English literature. Likewise, every culture in the world, every literary tradition has its own masterpieces. And I plan to discuss 8 of those in this course, 6 from non-Western traditions and 2 from classical Western tradition. The 6 from the non-Western traditions would be from Sanskrit, from Chinese, from Japanese to Tamil and Arabic and Persian literatures, and from the classical Latin and Greek from the Western tradition. The idea is to introduce us to the larger arena of world culture. We are fortunate in knowing English because practically every great literary work in the world has been translated into English. Moreover, they're all available today on the internet in Kindle. I have all these bound volumes in my library, but I also have them in Kindle. So I hope you will be able to enjoy the world's literary classics, which have had tremendous impact on various cultures, and that you will be inspired to look into some of these as a result of this course. Switch.
switch. We have the changing of the guards. My name is Mary Lou Rahman. This is session number 2, and it's called Opera in Ames. You just heard Vivi. Vivi and I each have taught over 30 years at the Rochester Institute of Technology in New York State. But this is the very first time in our long life together that we are going to teach a course together. Each class will be divided into 2 parts. In the first part, Vivi will introduce what opera is, its history, and much more. He will give you links so that in the quiet of your own home in the evenings, you'll be able to listen to some of the arias and perhaps also watch some of the singers that he has been talking about. After a brief coffee break, as you all know the coffee breaks that Vivi holds, I will take the second half and share with you the many exciting opera opportunities that exist right here in Ames in our own environment. You will become familiar with the DMMO, which is the Des Moines Metro Opera, its guild, and the 4 chapters, of which the Ames chapter is one. You will also become acquainted with the ISU Opera Studio program and with the Metropolitan Opera of New York, which of course reaches us right here in Ames nowadays. We plan to have brief live appearances by some singers during each class, singers from either the ISU Opera Studio or the DMMO. We hope that when this pandemic is behind us, we will be able to attend together some of these wonderful opera opportunities in Ames, since by that time you probably would have become at least familiar, but perhaps even a connoisseur of opera. So we are looking forward to seeing you in this course in October.
Good morning, this is Sam Wormley. I will be teaching course number 4, an overview of contemporary astronomy. This course will start, it's a 4-week course and will start on September 21st. This course is based on a 4-part story titled Conversations with Papa Joe from Alan Lightman's book, A Modern Day Yankee in a Connecticut Court. The story will be dramatically read by Mike Metz and myself, and all of the astronomy that comes up in the story will then be presented as the class. And we will cover all of those kinds of topics that you're interested in, including how stars form, what their life cycles are, black holes, and so on. And the course will also be designed in such a way that you can ask questions and we can go down all of those rabbit holes that you really want to explore. So I look forward to having people in the class, astronomy topics based from the Papa Joe story.
Hi, my name is Ron Palumbo, and I'll be offering class number 5, The Cult of Domesticity, or What the Suffragettes Were Up Against. As most of you probably know by now, 2020 marks the centenary of women getting the vote in the US. My PowerPoint presentation describes the pervasive 19th century gender stereotypes that were invoked by women as well as men as reasons for denying women the vote. You will discover that the marks of true womanhood are piety, purity, submissiveness, and domesticity, and that a woman's role was to provide the man with shelter from the competition and strife of the world outside, and to act as a moral guardian for the family. You will also hear about the scientific sexism of the age, evidence provided by learned experts, most of them theologians, by the way, proving that women's bodies were built around their reproductive organs and that their primary function, indeed perhaps their only function, was that of bearing children. You will also learn how, over time, women found a way out of being relegated to the realm of the purely domestic. By broadening their assigned role as moral guardians, women became involved first in the temperance movement, then in the growing call to abolish slavery, and a bit later created the women's movement itself, which grew slowly over the second half of the 19th century. These women became the suffragettes, who petitioned, campaigned, and demonstrated for the passage of the 19th Amendment. So I think you should consider taking this class for two reasons. It's short, only one session, and I think it'll be fun. Thank you. Okay, Ron Palumbo again. I'm also offering To Kill a Mockingbird, class number 6, To Kill a Mockingbird, 60 Years Later. It's easy to forget that when To Kill a Mockingbird first appeared in July of 1960, it was a first novel by an unknown author whose only prior literary publication was a single short story. This two-session PowerPoint presentation offers an introduction first to the extraordinary success of Mockingbird, and then to the life of its famously shy author. In our first session, I will lay out my theory that the main reason for the immediate claim that greeted Lee's novel lies in the creative tension between the historical setting of the story, that is, the Deep South during the Great Depression, and the historical moment of its appearance amid growing national awareness of the civil rights movement. In our second session, we will explore the little-known facts of Harper Lee's family background and education, her 7 years' labor on the story that became To Kill a Mockingbird, and on her growing silence about her life and work. So, if you're interested in this book and its author, I think this class might throw some new light on these subjects. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chuck Octor, and I'll be offering course number 7 this fall, and it's called COVID-19 and Other Issues Schools Are Facing After Not Having Classes in K-12 Education last spring. For those of you that have taken other courses from me on current issues, because of COVID, this is all new material, and I thought it would be great for us to catch up on what went on last spring, look at all the actions from the summer, and then see what school is like in the fall. So we'll start out by studying a little bit about what did go on last spring, the decisions schools had to make regarding learning being either mandatory or optional and why. We'll look at the problems with internet access, meals for students, co-curricular activities. And then we'll move into the summertime of planning for the current school year. And next we'll look at why and all of a sudden education became very political during the summer. We'll look at Iowa's Return to Learn issue. We'll look at the legislative bill that sort of has us hung up right now, and we'll look at the governor's interpretation of that. Next, we're going to look at how schools currently are starting to have school, some of the roadblocks that schools have had. We're going to look at health and safety issues for schools. We're going to look at the costs that safety is costing schools right now, what types of learning students have, and we're going to look at the risks being added to the 4th R with school. If we have time, we're going to look at other issues like what learners lost last spring. We're going to tackle some of the issues of should police officers be in school. That's been a heavy issue this summer for schools. And lastly, I hope to be able to talk about school in a time of racial reckoning. So we'll have a lot of discussion planned, even though we are on Zoom. And hopefully we'll all work together and learn a little more about K-12 education. Thanks. I hope you enjoy considering taking the class.
Hi, I'm Mary Lou Nasco, and I am teaching class number 8, Women Who Served the American Revolution through the Spanish-American War. I'm a retired Army officer. I went into the Women's Army Corps. I first got interested in this subject when I was working on my dissertation, and I was looking into the background of the Women's Army Corps, and I got back to the American Revolution and found out about the women of the Army, and that they actually, there were women of the Army, and they actually received rations. They received 1/2 rations, and children received 1/4 rations. And they were all listed. They kept track of who they were. I just found that really fascinating. I wasn't really sure whether they were camp followers. They seemed to be more than that. Well, I taught a class last semester on the Women's Army Corps. And again, I went back and started looking at this, and I got so involved in what I found. So this is, to me, this is very exciting. Women had all kinds of roles through, from the American Revolution through the Spanish-American War. They were wives, they were mothers. Many of them were soldiers. Some of them cross-dressed to be soldiers, and others just went as women and just picked up where the men left off. They served as nurses, laundresses, and spies. So please think about joining me for class number 8, Women Who Served the American Revolution through the Spanish-American War. I also have class number 9, Women Who Served the Army Nurse Corps, starting with the Civil War and going through World War II. We'll also touch on the Navy Nurse Corps too. So it'll be interesting to see how those nursing corps developed. They actually started back with the American Revolution, and the women did get paid to be nurses. So that was one way that they could earn money during the American Revolution. But it was formalized during the Civil War. And there actually was an Army Nurse Corps established during the Civil War, and that Army Nurse Corps continues through today. And then there was a Naval Nurse Corps that was also established. It's very interesting to see how this developed and how nursing went from being a male, well, it was female and then male and then female again. It's very interesting to see how that develops and the roles that women played. And it ties back into that, that suffragette movement and that movement for women to try to receive the vote. Because they could go to the military and they could join the military. And there were actually groups that were formed of women suffragettes who went and became nurses and doctors, trying to show that if they could do this during a time of war, that they certainly could vote. So please think about joining me for class number 9, Women Who Served the Army Nurse Corps, Civil War through World War II. Thank you.
I am Shannon Coleman, and I am an assistant professor and state extension specialist at ISU Department of Food Science and Human Nutrition. I am leading the class 10 entitled A Review of Consumer Food Safety Practices. The CDC estimates that every year, roughly 1 in 6 Americans get sick, 128,000 are hospitalized, and 3,000 die from foodborne disease. There are 31 known pathogens that cause foodborne illness. Many of these pathogens are tracked by public health systems. Consumers have an essential role in the food safety chain, as they are the last line of defense in the prevention of illness. Recommendations often focus on 5 aspects of safe food handling: personal hygiene, cross-contamination prevention, adequate cooking of food, time and temperature control, and avoiding high-risk foods or foods from unsafe sources. Young children, pregnant women, and older adults have an increase of susceptibility and severity of foodborne illness. Health promotion in older adults who live in independently living lifestyle is essential for intervention, as it has become a recognized in maintaining of health and well-being of these individuals. During my presentation, I will provide food safety practices all consumers should consider in their home kitchen. This presentation will contain funny stories about my family and myth-busting facts.
Hello, my name is Darjun Amini, and this is Kalim, and I'm teaching class 11 called Faith and Action, an Introduction to the Baha'i Faith. Baha'is are followers of Baha'u'llah, who was born in 1817 in present-day Iran to a noble family. He became a follower of the Bab, or the Gate, whose society-shaking teachings heralded the coming of the promised one of past religions. The Islamic clergy, alarmed by the eagerness of social response to the Bab's teachings, killed and imprisoned thousands of the Bab's followers, including Baha'u'llah, who lived a life of exile and imprisonment. Baha'u'llah himself was this personage the Bab had heralded, and proclaimed this truth only to be further exiled and imprisoned for the rest of his life. However, as is seen in all past religions, ridicule, imprisonment, and even death have never been sufficient to quench the light of truth, and the teachings of Baha'u'llah have since spread to every corner of the globe. Come join us to learn more about the efforts of Baha'is in the world today, and reflect on some of the teachings of Baha'u'llah, and explore how they apply to the lives of individuals, communities, and institutions.
My name is Mary Lunasco, and I will be teaching class number 13, Sharing Your Story, Writing Your Own Obituary. So this is the fourth time that I've taught this class, and it just did not turn out the way that I thought it would. I thought we would all write some really nice obituaries and that would be it. But what happens during this class, because you're sharing your story, is that we become very, very well acquainted, and it actually creates community. And so I have made some tweaks to this class to try to enhance that idea of becoming a community, of getting to know people, maybe making a new friend through this class. And so I think it's going to be very, very enjoyable. By the time the class ends, you will have written a newspaper obituary, which is a kind of short and sweet, to the point obituary, but we try to make those come alive with just a few snippets of who you really are, a picture into who you are. And then we will write the online obituary, which is a much longer obituary and can contain more of those story elements and threads of your life and who you are. So please think about joining me for class number 13, Sharing Your Story, Writing Your Own Obituary. And let's see if we can't increase community during COVID and maybe even make a new friend. Thank you.
I'm Mike Coview. I'll be teaching course 14, You Can't Put a Value on a Human Life and Other Myths of Public Policy Making. This will be my second time teaching an OLLI course, and the previous one was also over Zoom. The focus is going to be on selected myths or misconceptions about policymaking, which interfere with public understanding of policies and how they are made, and also often actually interfere with the understanding of policymakers as to how the processes that they're involved in actually work, which can have some rather odd effects on the outcomes. There are going to be some cases where there'll be at least a couple of cases where we'll be talking about opposing myths. Different sides of the political spectrum have diametrically opposed views of a particular policy process or particular things that happen in policy making, and they're both wrong or both partially right. One example of that is cost-benefit analysis is thought of by the right wing as right-wingers as being a liberal plot to impose regulations that we don't need, and by the leftists as a conservative right-wing plot to avoid regulations that are essential. They're both wrong and they're both right. This will be 4 weeks starting in September 15th, and I look forward to it.
I'm Jorgen Rasmussen. I'm retired from the political science department at Iowa State University. I thought we should take a look at one of the fundamental responsibilities of citizens in a democracy, which is to talk politics, to keep yourself informed about public policy, to know what the options are. But if that discussion becomes, no, I don't like him, he's a fascist, or I can't stand her, she's a socialist, that doesn't advance us very much. That's simply using those terms as insults or as boo words. So what I want to do in this course is to look at some of the major political and economic doctrines and to give them some content to specify what actually is fascism, what actually is socialism, so we can use those terms in a presidential election year as something that's meaningful rather than insults. And then when we come down to the final of the 4 sessions in the course, I'm going to take a look at what is becoming the most serious public policy issue in contemporary politics, growing inequality. And the question we will examine is the extent to which hypercapitalism is a threat to democracy in Europe and in the United States. So, you want to be a good citizen? You want to talk politics? Climb on board. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Beth Larrabee. Oops. Geraldine, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay. I'll put my video on. Start video. Maybe. Well, I'll talk to you anyway. I'm Beth Larrabee. I'm course number 16. Title is Sustainable Living 101, How to Reduce Your Carbon Footprint and Increase Your Quality of Life. Your carbon footprint is really a way of measuring nature's resource use on the planet. Earth Day and Earth Overshoot Day was August 22nd of this year. Overshoot Day is the day when humanity will have used all of nature's resource budget for the entire year. Last year, Earth Overshoot Day was July 29th. We gained a whole month, but it took us a global pandemic to move it 4 weeks later. We used less fuel and transportation and manufacturing. While we were staying home, we bought less stuff or shuttered retail and job losses. A really tough way to gain some sustainability. And there's a lot of easier ways to do that. We can make modifications to our chosen lifestyle, whatever that may be, to reduce our carbon footprint or our ecological footprint, or however you want to describe it. There are lots of ways to reduce water use and energy use, to modify our land use. How we eat makes a big difference in a number of these ways. Learning how to dispose of things properly or to repurpose things that we no longer need. We can do these without feeling miserable or be deprived of our stuff. We can preserve our home planet, we can be healthy, we can live well, we can find happiness and fulfillment. It's just the difference between belonging, having an affinity for a place, a situation, or people, and our belongings, our stuff, our movable possessions. So I'm really hoping that we will not only learn from my own research and how I've changed my lifestyle, and from all of the people who are going to participate in the class. You're always going to learn something from somebody else. So I hope you join us this fall. Yeah, thank you.
I'm Jean Meek, and I'm going to be teaching class number 18, the music of George Frederick Handel. Now, in view of the times that we're living in, I've decided to do this class a little differently. I've taught many classes at OLLI, but say this one's going to be a bit different. I've always felt that, you know, when things get too bad, music makes me feel better, and I hope people who take the class will find the same thing. We are going to cover the syllabus that's mentioned in the catalogue when looking at all different kinds of music that Handel wrote. But I'm going out of my way to find pieces that I think are particularly beautiful to listen to, that will make us forget things for a while or will give us a smile. I've also decided to include what I call a request section. And if people have a particular piece of Handel's music that they would like to hear, or perhaps a piece that they've heard about and don't know but would like to hear what it's like, then I want them to tell me this, preferably in the first class session, so that I have time to work it into the class. And we will try and include as many of these as possible. So, you know, why not come and listen to some music for a while and just forget everything else? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Leanne Wilson, and I'm teaching class 19, Planets and Life in the Universe, and I'm talking to you today from Mars. Well, Zoom-wise, anyway. Have you ever wondered about whether there's anyone in the universe we might talk with? Since the early 90s, we've learned a huge amount about the variety of planets and solar systems that are possible. There were some very surprising results that revolutionized our views of the solar system and its past, its future, and how unusual or typical it is. We'll be talking about these things and also about the likelihood and implications of making contact with another technological species. And I plan to work in some time to discuss some of these philosophical implications in small groups and together. So welcome to Life and Planets and Life in the Universe.
Good morning, this is Sam Wormley. I'm going to be teaching an 8-week course. It's course number 21, Learning Mac Computers. As I do in every class that I teach, I provide a handout. And that handout serves as an outline for me to cover material, and it serves as a resource for you so that when you have that handout on your computer, you can follow the links and go into the material in as much depth as you would like. The major topics that I'm going to cover will be the first week, navigating the Mac. In other words, where are all the controls? How do you customize things? How do you get around and find things? Then making life easier, showing you how to do exactly that, make your life easier in being able to do the kinds of things that you want to do on the computer. The third week covers contacts and connections. The fourth week, Mac OS resources. And this is a time of year that Apple usually introduces a new operating system, and it's a good time to include that information in the class. The fifth week covers word processing and printing. The sixth week, security and maintenance. The seventh week, backing up, storage, and sharing. And the last week is really about solving problems and getting answers. You've gotten the roots from taking the course, you're spreading your wings, and you can soar off and be confident in being able to solve all of your own problems. Now, in addition to these sort of categorized topics per week, we really count on your questions, and we're going to address whatever you need to learn about your Mac computers. Thank you.
Ron?
Hi, my name's Ron Palumbo, and I'll be offering a 3-session PowerPoint presentation entitled Class Number 2, How to Create a Torturer, 3 Theories. Now, actually, this class won't tell you how to create a torturer, but I hope it will help you understand how that came about in Hitler's Germany in the 1930s, at the My Lai massacre in 1968, and at the US prison camp at Abu Ghraib in 2004. After World War II, scientists were at a loss to explain how Hitler had found so many willing volunteers in carrying out the Holocaust. In 1950, a German intellectual named Theodor Adorno and his fellow researchers presented the first of our 3 theories, the concept of the authoritarian personality. During the 1960s, Yale University psychologist Stanley Milgram carried out his now famous obedience study. Milgram's goal was to define the conditions under which an individual might obey orders to carry out actions that were in fact against that individual's conscience. This theory was later used to explain the behavior of soldiers at My Lai. In the 2000s, Stanford University psychologist Stanley Zimbardo testified as an expert witness at the military trial of the US Army reservists who were charged with torturing prisoners at Abu Ghraib. He argued for what he called the power of the situation to draw otherwise psychologically healthy individuals into torturing others. He presented his argument, our 3rd theory, in his 2008 book entitled The Lucifer Effect. If this topic interests you, I hope you will join me in exploring the strengths and weaknesses of each of these theories. Thank you.
She has to, yeah. Hello, I'm Barbara Pleasance, and I'll be teaching class number 23, titled Eugenics. And I've taught this before, and I've also taught a course for OLLI on the Holocaust. And very, very briefly, eugenics began as the goal to breed better humans. And this idea was embraced by many prominent scientists and the greater scientific community in the early 20th century. It had an influence on public policy and on many different countries. So the description is in the catalog, so I'm going to pose some questions, the answers to which you might find if you sign up for this class. Which country was first to institute forced sterilization? Who was likely to be chosen to be, quote, forcibly sterilized? What other countries did the same following that first one? What was the US Supreme Court's decision on the constitutionality of involuntary sterilization? How did the US eugenics movement influence immigration law in the 1920s? What was the influence of the US eugenics movement on Adolf Hitler? And were there policies passed in Hitler's Germany that were eugenic policies? And they were called racial hygiene. They termed certain individuals to be in possession of life unworthy of life. And unlike any place else, they carried this policy to its ultimate conclusion, which was state-sponsored murder. What prominent people in the United States were advocates of eugenics, and how was this subject presented to the general public? How did and does eugenics combine with our history of racism, white supremacy, classism, anti-Semitism, and other still existing prejudices? We will explore some contemporary issues. What were those lives in the past, or still today, that essentially did not matter? If you're interested in some of those answers, I hope you'll join us for the 4-week course beginning in October.
My name is Lee Tesdell. I'm teaching course number 24. The title of the course is Conservation 101 for Iowa Landowners. The audience for this course is farmland owners in the Midwest, and the outcome will be a plan of action for conservation on your farmland. I am the owner of my own Tisdall Century Farm in northern Polk County, and have implemented a number of conservation practices on my farm. So we will share our stories, and we will discuss such topics as in-field conservation practices and edge-of-field practices. So join us for an interesting discussion, particularly if you're an Iowa farmland owner. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Steve Jones, and I'm going to be doing a presentation on water system development in Tanzania, East Africa. Okay, so I can't. Okay, so I was going to share some slides, but that's been disabled. So let me just real quickly, myself and Dave Fox will be doing this presentation. Dave is retired civil engineer. He started Fox Engineering here in Ames, Iowa. I'm retired from Iowa State. I taught civil engineering for 38 years. And the gist of our presentation will be how the Rotary Club of Ames got involved in developing drinking water systems for villages in Tanzania, East Africa. So we will first introduce to people where in the world is Tanzania, East Africa, and where in Tanzania are we doing our projects. And these are large-scale projects. So each of these projects costs anywhere from about $250,000 US up to about $360,000. And we'll talk about how we do the needs assessment, how we determine what villages we're going to construct the water systems. We'll talk a little bit about how we raise the capital here in the United States to do this. That's done collectively through multiple Rotary clubs around the United States and the world. We actually have a Rotary club in Italy and one in Bermuda that are project partners, one in California. And we'll talk about how the money raised from Rotary clubs is leveraged through the Rotary Foundation World Fund to fund these projects. And so we will talk about, excuse me, how we go about hiring contractors to do the work. We have a local project. We have a local Rotary Club in Same, Tanzania, that manages and executes the projects. So we have a full-time project manager over there. We have a contractor that we have found to be reliable. And so we will talk about how we go about getting the systems built. A lot of the work for digging the trenches for the water lines is done by the local community members. So that saves on labor. We'll show pictures of the completed systems. Several of these, we're on our 4th project right now, is under construction. The first 2 projects were deep wells. So 450 feet deep. Deep wells. Our last 2 projects are a surface water supply, so these are spring-fed systems. So you will get to see how the work is completed. You'll get to see what the completed systems look like. And most importantly, we'll have a discussion about what is the impact of these communities having a safe supply of drinking water. And it goes beyond just the health implications it goes to what happens to the economies in these small villages. So there's a whole multitude of what I call after effects of having a sustainable water supply in these villages, including local food production and the like. We will also, during the class, show a 20-minute YouTube video that we produced here locally, and you will get to meet and hear several of our project partners from Tanzania explain in their own words the impact that these water systems have had on their communities. So if you're interested in exploring different cultures, you will find the people in Tanzania to be very friendly, very hardworking, and I think you'll find it very interesting.
This is Sam Wormley. I'm going to teach class number 27, titled Personal Transportation Without Gasoline. By 2023, it is estimated that electric vehicles will equal the number of internal combustion engine vehicles being sold in the marketplace. And by 2026, it should be about 90% of vehicle sales will be electric vehicles. This one-day course explores our choices for personal transportation, minimizing or eliminating CO2 emissions, electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and fuel cell hydrogen vehicles will all be looked at. Vehicle types are compared and contrasted. We will also explore solar panel options to reduce operational emissions to zero, freeing users from the electric grid. And the idea is that if you invest in an electric vehicle, you don't necessarily have to charge it on the grid, but could have your own solar cells to keep it charged up and basically have fuel-free cost in the operation of that vehicle. As always, there'll be a handout that serves as an outline for me to cover the material, and also serves as a resource for you being able to go into all of the links in more depth. So if you're interested in moving into the future, which we all need to do, this is a really good course to take. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Lohr, and I'm speaking on behalf of several of the presenters for the class, Exploring Your Genealogy Online. If you've ever wondered about your family origins, was Grandpa really a stowaway? Are we related to royalty and that sort of thing? Or if you've been researching your ancestry for some time, you couldn't pick a better time to be doing so because of the resources that are online. The first class is intended to help you with good genealogy practices and research. And then from there, we'll go into various websites and resources that can help you. We'll look at the Family Search website, cemetery and death records, census records, newspapers, government sites, and more. And now most of these are free, but not all of them. The last session I think will be great. It's a test ancestry. Invite you to join us on the journey. Be prepared to make some new discoveries, but also be prepared for a surprise. Finding Your Genealogy Online class, a 6-session class.
Hi, I'm Jerry Hyde, Youth Services Manager at the Ames Public Library. I'm teaching class number 29, Women's Influence in Children's Literature. In the great green room, there was a telephone and a red balloon and a picture of the cow jumping over the moon. The beginning words of a famous children's book, Goodnight Moon by Margaret Wise Brown, looks and sounds very simple, doesn't it? But was it? This year is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, an amendment that helped millions of women move closer to equality in all aspects of American life. Women advocated for job opportunities, fairer wages, education, sex education, and birth control. Women voted and eventually ran for office to improve not only government, but also their individual lives. What appears to be simple, innocent children's books and the 19th Amendment have in common? Not all things are as simple as they look on the surface, and not everyone believed in this equality, not even other women. Join me during this 3-part series that explores strong and powerful women, some successful in furthering the cause, some who have used their powers and prevented successes, all using children's literature as a vehicle to do so. Find out how, why, and who were prominent female publishers of children's books, authors of children's books, characters in those children's books, and finally, how our own Ames women use their power to vote to begin and build the Ames Public Library. Good night, old lady, whispering hush. Good night, noises everywhere. Thank you.
This is Sam Wormley. Course number 31 is titled Photography Tips and Techniques for Cell Phones and DSLR Cameras. In other words, this course is for anybody that uses a camera in any way. The structure of the class, it's set at 3 to 5 in the afternoon, so we have 2 full hours over our 6 weeks. Those 6 weeks are going to cover camera basics, the cell phone camera basics, the DSLR camera basics, composition, lighting, post-image processing, printing and storage, and challenging yourself. Each week, we will have an assignment to go out and photograph whatever we agree on is our general theme. And then the next week, we will look at each other's images and critique and praise and just be enamored of the different ways that different people visualize things that they capture as photographs. This is also, it's meant to be able to answer any kinds of questions that you have related to photography. And so it really provides a camaraderie in a way. Even though we can't be together out photographing things, we get to share all those experiences together with the photographs, taking up about an hour and a half of our 2 hours each week. So if you want to be a better photographer, if you just want to learn more about your instrument, how to make better images, this is a really excellent class to take. Thank you.
I would like to thank all of the instructors who were able to be here today. I don't know about you, but these are awesome classes. So if you were on the fence, not sure what you wanted to take, I think you've got a general idea now what is really awesome. As you'll notice that several of our OLLI classes range anywhere from a 1 day to 8 weeks or 6 weeks. So there's a wide variety. So we hope you'll sign up for the fall classes and we'll see you online. Thanks everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.